Tracie spent a year in the jobs that are the crucial parts of the American food system. She worked in the fields in California, picking peaches, onions, going from job to job, and living as the only, really, both Caucasian and one of the very few women working in the fields. She then went to see what the food distribution and sales system is like by working in 2 different Walmarts, first in a grocery department and then in produce. And she worked as well in the kitchen at an Applebee's, which is the largest sit-down restaurant chain in the United States. Her description of which, given what she was doing there, sounds a great deal like what Charlie Chaplin was doing in modern times, sort of the essence of the speed-up, the industrial assembly line that is the kitchen in restaurants such as that. The book is a little bit reminiscent of Barbara Ehrenreich's Nickel and Dimed. It's a little reminiscent of Upton Sinclair's The Jungle. I found it a little reminiscent of Dante's Inferno myself. She does have not a Virgil to lead her through the 9 circles of underpaid and pretty thankless work, but she does have all kinds of mentors in the fields of California, people who get her through strange days at Walmart and the frenetic days in Applebee's. And what we see really is a number of things, but chiefly perhaps that the difference between the Inferno and Paradiso in the American food system is a difference of class, that a kind of industrial system has arisen for food, which is a very exploitive industrial system, and which also puts a premium on producing the kind of food that recently Americans have been told is not the best kind of food to eat, and indeed is not. What we see really is an entire system. People working very hard, harvesting some food that's very good and some food that's not so great in the fields. By the time it reaches Walmart, there's a certain degradation in quality, and by the time it reaches Applebee's, same as well. Because the food is structured along class lines, and the people who do the work in this system are largely at the bottom of the class system. It's a remarkable book recounting a remarkable odyssey in which Tracie was living on the kind of wages and the kind of absence of wages that these workers endure for long periods of time, many of them for their entire careers. So we're honored and delighted to present the Hillman Award for book for 2013 to Tracie McMillan for The American Way of Eating.
Obviously, I need to thank the Hillman Foundation for this, as well as Scribner and my agent, Rebecca, at Hill Nadell, who actually is the person who came up with the idea that I should do something like Nickel and Dimed, but about food. And, I just want to acknowledge, that I talk about the book a lot, and often people are like, oh, it's such a weird book. And I'm like, well, it's not that weird, because people have been writing about food in class for a long time, just not in the last 10 years or so. And I think it's key that Harold brought up this point about wages, because if there's anything that I sort of, in my internal fuming, had wanted to communicate with the book, it was that if people that are talking about sustainable food really cared about poor people in this country, they wouldn't talk about farmers markets, they would talk about raising wages. And I basically thought that this would be a more effective way to communicate that than just sort of shouting into the ether. And so they want us to talk a little bit about the process for doing the book. So there are just a couple little anecdotes from the process of beginning the book that I think illustrate a lot. And the first is that I was sort of going to these publishing meetings, and those of you who have done book work are familiar with this. There's a lot of smoke and mirrors involved, and you're sort of trying to convince them that, yes, everybody is going to buy this for sure. And my strategy was to say, and this was in very early 2009, that, people care about food and people really like food, but they are going to get really sick and tired of being told to spend $9 a pound on tomatoes. And this is not going to keep working. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't talk about food. We just have to talk about it a different way. And I believed this, and I also thought that I might be slightly delusional and that this might not actually work. And so it's been a really amazing journey to see that I actually was right and that people want to talk about food in class, and to be able to begin having a dialogue in the US about that, for me, has been really just fun and exciting. And sort of the other thing from that publishing process that I still remember is that I went into one of these meetings and I said, yes, I'm going to go and I'm going to work undercover in the food system. I'm going to work 2 months in each job. And one of the, the very nice women at the table turned to me and she said, yeah, but so tell me, why do you want to do that? Isn't that hard? And this will tell you a little bit about how stubborn and hard-headed I can be, and perhaps not as charming as I would like. And I turned to her and I said, well, poor people do this their whole lives, so I'm pretty sure I can hack 2 months' peace. I almost did not manage to hack it. I want to point out that, and this room has quite a number of folks who have been supportive of me in small benefactor ways, or in feeding me ways, or in supporting and training me ways. And, I really just came out of that meeting being like, I'm absolutely going to go and do this. And I'm just so glad that it worked. And so I just want to thank the Hillman Foundation again for recognizing the work. I'm just so thrilled that, the book's success means that not just that I'm going to get to keep doing work that I find meaningful, which was part of the reason I embarked on that journey, but also because I think it means we're in a place now as a country where we can really start to have a solid discussion around food and class and begin to really build some cross-class solidarity, which is actually what I'm all about. So thank you very much.